Hello there, welcome to One on One. My name is Bridget Otu. Today on One on One, we're talking all things Arise Ghana. They held a successful demonstration, 2 days. It's gained both local and international attention. They haven't stopped there. They've been very vocal and critical on issues that affect the national development. And at their last press conference, they talked about the increment by the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission that they were given the PURC 48-hour ultimatum to withdraw the increment of over 20% on both water and electricity. That time has elapsed. What's next for Arise Ghana? I have one of the key members or conveners of Arise Ghana with me. He also happens to be the executive director for the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, Mensah Thompson, with me here in the studio to talk more about this and also talk about his own trials and tribulations. He's got a case in court, so we'll look at that in a bit. Mensah Thompson, it's good to have you back on the show.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm always excited to be here.
Oh,
I love your interviews.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. I want to start off with the PURC. Just a quick word on, the increment 20, I think 22.5, 27 for electricity and water. I'm not quite sure of the figure. We'll put the right figure out. And the minority challenged it and said it wasn't the 20%, but rather 34%. And they held a press conference to explain why that is. I want to get from your point of view and where you sit, where you are currently in terms of discussion on putting pressure on PURC to withdraw.
Yes, thank you very much, and greetings to your viewers. The pressure is not on PURC. We are not the ones to put pressure on PURC. The pressure is on government, rather. And what we are saying is that the existing shocks in the economy cannot contain any upward tariff adjustment. The people cannot, afford it. Businesses cannot afford it. 21.55% for water and 27.15% for electricity. That is exorbitant. Looking at the current existing pressures, i.e. inflation, exchange rate pressures, all these things put together, plus an upward tariff adjustment will collapse the economy. And so what we are saying is that, look, in 2018, 2019, the government itself caused PURC to review electricity tariff downwards, even though we had said at the time that looking at the condition of the country, that was not a good move because it could create some debt in the sector. But still the government did not listen. They went ahead because it served some political expediency. In 2020, during the COVID period, government itself caused PURC to review electricity downwards, water was given out for free, and other things. What it means is that the government have the capacity to impress on PURC to do something about the utility tariffs. And so this whole conversation about PURC is an independent body and then government cannot do anything about it has been, reduced to nothing by precedents, which the same government, has caused PURC to do. And so what we are saying is that, look, PURC, if you leave them, will ask for even 50% or 60%.
They had asked for well over 100%.
Yes.
I mean, both water and electricity.
Yes, if you leave them.
And electricity.
And that is because of the factors of production. And these factors of production are influenced by government decisions and policies. For example, their production materials are largely imported. And so your exchange rate pressures, they are charging tariffs in cedis, but their cost of production is largely in dollars or in foreign exchange. So what do? It means that anytime the cedi depreciates, they lose more money. And so these are the areas that government should look at. One, how do we control inflation and the rising depreciation of the cedi? How do we bring the factors of production for these utility companies down so that it can match up the recent tariff regime that the people and industries are paying? That is what should be the focus of government. Apart from that, government can also then refocus on plugging the leakages. There's so much leakages in the electricity power sector, we are losing, millions and millions of cedis through power theft, through corruption, through mismanagement, and through the misapplication of ESLA. A huge chunk of these things are debts on the books, on the book of SOEs. ECG is owing a number of these SOEs.
You mean a number of SOEs are owing ECG?
Yeah, I mean a number of SOEs are owing ECG, but ECG is also owing because they get the powerful. So ECG,
I get you.
ECG is owing Gridco plenty.
Got it.
Gridco in turn is owing the IPPs who are also giving them power.
Got you.
And so all these things are debt. And so what you do is that and that's why ESLA was brought in to clear all these existing legacy debts so that the space will be free. Because once there is debt also has interest attached to it. And so even if your factors of production are not going up, the interest component of your existing debt sitting on the books of the power producers alone can move their operation cost high, and they may demand more. So what you can do is, how do we clear those debts? But largely that decision has been taken away because government has collateralized the proceeds of the ESLA, and so now the debt is not being cleared. And so there are a number of factors, and even currently, mismanagement and the reckless behavior of the energy minister is creating a lot of problems in the power sector. And if we don't take care, we are likely to get back to doom so.
How so? What mismanagement?
You see, a number of the IPPs have, based on the power purchase agreement that they signed, were take or pay arrangements. Now, and so even if they are not producing power to give to us, we are paying for idling costs. Now, what the energy minister is doing is that he's working around the IPPs, and then he said he's brought something called merit-based deployment. What this merit-based deployment is that he will sit down and say that, okay, today, this IPP, you are the one going to produce, you are the one, Gridco is going to take power from you. Right. And so all the other plants shut down. Forgetting that even if those plants are not working, we are paying idling costs. And so if we don't take care, through this merit-based dispatch, which is a new thing with the energy minister, Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, is trying to bring into the sector, is going to create a lot of problems and further debt, for government. And so these are some of the things that we want the government should pay attention to. You don't mismanage the power sector. You don't create debts. You don't take away the relief, the relief item on the debt component, and create so much pressure on the utility companies. And then when they ask for more, you come to we the consumers and offload all those recklessness and pressures on us. The system cannot absorb it. As for the household, we are already struggling. We can't even buy food to eat. How can we pay more for water and more for electricity? So once the tariffs are high, taxes, people are going to pay less. People are going to will default, and it could create a problem.
I believe with the current increment that was announced, the strategy was to have households pay more, and for small businesses, they mentioned the barber shop, maybe the salons, all those involved in small businesses, to be cushioned. So households are going to pay more, and then they will pay less. So in a way, it's also it's helpful.
No, albeit who is paying more, who is paying less. I think the problem is that there's an upwards adjustment for each sector, i.e. the household and industry. Each of them cannot absorb even a 1% increment because of the already existing pressures that I've enumerated. And so what you have to do is, one, what is going to happen, especially for the businesses, is that when their factors of production go over the roof and they are not even breaking even, a lot of them are going to shut down their plants. Manufacturing is going to grind to a halt. At least, if this tariff adjustment kicks in within 3 months, a lot of industries will grind to a halt because it will be uncompetitive to produce in Ghana anymore. And these are businessmen, so they will carry their money and go to China, go to Dubai, go elsewhere to go and bring the commodities to rather import, because it will be much cheaper to import than to produce here.
And that will put
pressure on your already existing pressures on your currency. And so it is not even in the interest of government to pursue this upward tariff adjustment. It is in the interest of the government to, at this moment, look at how do we cushion businesses, how do we reduce the pressure on our exchange rate by promoting domestic production and promoting domestic consumption, so that the existing pressures on your exchange rate through importation of items and products will go down. If that is not done, no matter how much you increase tariff adjustment, the problem is going to exist. You can't solve the problem in the power sector. You can't solve the problem in the utility sector. At the end of the day, you'll come back to zero. And then the rippling effect on the economy will be negative.
But isn't that what? I mean, they may have taken all of that into consideration before coming out, because they know there's a wastage in the system, pipe spillage, they know there's an illegal connection. They are aware of all these factors, but somehow it's always results in increment. So what do you think they are not doing right? And if consistently they have increased and not gotten the results, then what exactly are they not doing right?
Well, I think the government just succumbed to the pressure of PRC, one. And two, it only succumbed to those pressures because the problems the utility companies are going through are the creation of government. And so when they come to you and you don't do anything about it, they want to charge more. Yeah. And when they come to you, they know that you are the one who created the problem. And so when they come to a solution, you don't increase for them, they'll put pressure on you. So that is the problem. And so it's just offloading the pressure the utility companies are pushing on them to we the consumers. And I don't think that is right. This same government during the COVID period said people were suffering, and so it brought some adjustments. Even though after it introduced the tax. And now the utility companies are telling us that all this power that they gave, all these water that they gave, free water, we have to pay for it. But we've already paid for it in 2021 when the government introduced the COVID tax. As we speak, we're still paying the COVID tax. And so by now, those debts should have been cleared. So why are we being asked to pay more? And so clearly there's something wrong. And as for the power sector, the problems there is just, it is sheer mismanagement, and mainly because somebody who has very little knowledge about power and energy has been put there to manage it. And this person is just interested.
You mean the energy minister,
yes,
or
the
ECG boss? Or
the energy minister. He has very little knowledge about power. He has very little knowledge about finances. You know, in the power sector, in the energy sector, it is having the technical knowledge in energy and finance.
You actually don't have to. That's why we have the ministry there. They have experts, works with experts in various fields. So you don't need to necessarily be an expert of it to be there or be put there as a minister.
Yes, but if you have a minister like Matthew Opoku Prempeh, who, apart from his ignorance in the sector, will still not listen to his advisors and will go about flaunting his shoulders. How do you
know he's not listening to his advisors? There are others who think that he's doing well because there is no doomso. I mean, I think he used to say doomsie or something. There is nothing like doomso.
The only reason why we don't have a doomso now is not because the debt that existed during the 2015-2014 crisis, it does not exist. The only problem now is that we don't now rely on gas from Nigeria and elsewhere. And so now we have Ghana Gas, where we can offtake gas from there, and we can owe them because it's a government company. And so even if we don't pay, they can't say we won't supply you. You understand? So that is the only reason why we are not in doomso. We are not in doomso because of any exceptional policy Matthew Opoku Prempeh have introduced in the power or energy sector. And so, but he doesn't listen. I've spoken to a lot of the advisors at the sector, a lot of players. I've spoken to even IPPs who have raised several concerns about the posture of the minister. He just doesn't listen to the people who have the technical knowledge, who have the understanding of the sector. And so he's just going about raising his shoulders and trying to cut deals here and there. At the end of the day, at whose detriment? We, the consumers. And if the predictions that I'm getting from these players are right, if we don't take care, by the first quarter of next year, we may end up in doomso because the debts being created in the sector will no longer be sustainable.
So here is the thing. So what is Arise Ghana going to do? Because you held a press conference very emphatic about, the timelines. I mean, it has elapsed. What Sarah is Ghana going to do to continuously put pressure, like you said, it's not on PRs, but on government, because government has a bigger role and control in this.
Yes, we have another big demonstration coming up in Kumasi, a very big one. Kumasi by September, in September, yes, a very big one, and it's going to be bigger than what happened in Accra. And we know that after that demonstration, something is going to happen in this country. Because
it's the stronghold of the government or the NPP?
Not just because of that, but because of how the organization and mobilization is going to be done. Because we know that that place is a government stronghold. But if you're looking at one of the places where the inhabitants are disillusioned under this government is in the Ashanti region. They are not only short of development, they are not only short of attention, but severe hardship have been compounded on these people by the reckless policies of this administration. And these people have been reaching out to us. And so the Kumasi demonstration is going to be mega. Even though it's going to happen in Kumasi, it is going to bring this country to a standstill. And we know that just like our first demonstration pushed the government to go back to the IMF, because the government has insisted they will never go to the IMF until we hit the street and put pressure on it, and they succumbed to that pressure and went to the IMF and started talking to the IMF. We know that after this demonstration, the government will do something.
When you say you're hearing now, you're getting complaints from the Ashanti region, who is complaining? Because you also mentioned that it's a place where people are disillusioned. I mean, a place where they can literally go and say the sky chains are ready, and people will believe it because we heard it, in the lead up to the 2020 election. So who is complaining if they are happy and keep voting for the party?
You see, at Rise Ghana, before our demonstration, we do what we call community engagement. And so in Accra, prior to the demonstration, that's why our demonstration was very massive and effective. We had already gone to the ground and interacted with the people. So the market women, the traders, and what have you. So the same thing is happening in the Ashanti region. We're engaging the strong magazine traders, we're engaging the small scale miners, we're engaging the market women, we're engaging students, we're engaging ordinary people. And the feedback and the kind of things they're telling us is bizarre, and it's we are staying here in Accra. Largely the media projection of issues in the country is largely centered in the capital. Very few rural stories keep popping up here and there. But if you go to the hinterland, you go to the externalities of the region, like Ashanti region, not just Kumasi, but outside the capital, the greater Kumasi area, you see severe poverty, hardship, and suffering. And you could see these are things that shouldn't happen in a country like Ghana, with so much resources, so much potential. Why? Because you have a government that is not interested in bringing any sort of relief to its people. You have a government which largely is thinking about how to enrich its family and friends. And so all its policies is geared towards the first consideration of any policy the government has brought has to do with making money for its family. If you look at a number of them, I can list on it. And so,
like which one? Which one is to make money for? I mean, what I can mention is free SHS, which has been lauded across, all political divide, that it's a good policy. I can think of one district, one factory.
Who has the free SHS benefited?
The poor.
The poor? Is that what the poor are saying? Go to the ground and talk to the poor people again. Now the poor people are begging government to pay. The poor people. And so free SHS was only an avenue to make money for some people. Planting for food and jobs.
Who is making money from free SHS?
Oh, of course. We know people who have been given ambassadorial deeds. We've built a free SHS secretariat in Accra. Do you need a secretariat to run free SHS? You build a free SHS secretariat in Accra with people driving in Land Cruisers around when schools can't get food to eat. And we are saying that we are implementing a pro-poor policy. Then planting for food and jobs. Planting for food and jobs. Look at food prices on the market now. We've sunk millions and millions of dollars into a program. The minister told us, there have been bumper harvests for the last 3 years. Really? And today, people can't even find maize. I got a shock of my life when I learned we are importing cassava from Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire. So what is the planting for food and jobs? So you realize that this whole sloganeered policy was just an avenue to make money for some people, and people have made money. And now the guy who was at the helm of this recklessness says he wants to be president, and he's walking about. You see, you go travel at the hinterland and you see he's erected some billboard. Money from planting for food and jobs being used to erect his own billboards. So clearly, you see, these are people who are not interested in the ordinary people. And in all this, you keep hearing, break the eight, break the eight, break the eight, break the eight. So they are not interested in bringing relief to you. They are interested in how they are going to break, an illusional eight which doesn't exist. And so it is very important that we go to these people and bring some hope to them. And the thing that we are doing, people don't understand. You see, what Arise Ghana is doing is good even for the government, even though we are putting pressure on the government. You see, people have become so desperate to the extent that they are willing to do anything, take arms, hit the street, and do so many things. But what we are doing is that Arise Ghana, we are channeling all these energies of young people who could have ended up engaged in violent activities and doing things that could have destabilized the peace and stability of this country. We are channeling all that energy and giving them a platform to exercise their displeasure, a platform to demonstrate in a more civil manner that will culminate into pressure that will force any rational government to listen.
The president has actually said, and the first was the information minister, and then the president reiterated the point that it is rather people like you in Arise Ghana who are trying to destabilize the country. As far as he's concerned, everything is fine. It is people like you. So even though you think you're using a legitimate means to express whether your frustration, your anger, the president says you're just naysayers and you're just trying to destabilize the country.
Well, that is not new. I mean, he started calling people professional Jeremiahs and naysayers even during the COVID period when people started criticizing the government's COVID response. So that is not new. The president is not new at throwing shades at everybody. But I think to a very large extent, this tells you the person, the character of the president. He's not a president who is open to dissenting opinion. He's a president who believes in either you are for me or against me. And that is largely what has led this country into a ditch. Because this a president who sees anybody who criticizes him as an enemy, that cannot be a leader. Because not everybody who criticizes you is an enemy. Even in our local parlance, we say the person who loves you is the person who will criticize you, who will say your matter. Your door will not come was him. That's what we say in Tree. So when people criticize you, it doesn't mean they have any personal vendetta against you. It's because they are sitting behind and they see the path you're taking and they know that this path is going to launch into a date. And I'll give you an example. Last month, a group of civil society organizations came up with a coalition and they did a press conference at this Coconut Grove. And I was there, just sitting down, hearing all these CSOs, so-called, how do you call it? They have a name that they call themselves, prominent CSOs. And I listened to the language they were saying. They were criticizing the government, talking about corruption, talking about PDS, talking about Ejapa, talking about so many things. And I was shocked hearing that kind of language from them. So I was sitting there quietly. And then when I got the opportunity to speak, I just got a microphone. And I pointed out to all of them that they were hypocrites. You see, these were the very things we started saying in 2017. When this government started, the path that it took, some of us saw that this path was going to end us in only one place, in a ditch. And so we were very strong in our criticisms because we wanted things to change and wanted the direction of government's policy and plan to change. But we were called names. In fact, they were part of the people who were tagging us as political elements and all those things. Now we've watched on for the guy to drive the whole country into a ditch. Now we say, well, you are forming a coalition to do what? When the thing is already destroyed. This country is already destroyed. Our economy is destroyed. We don't have an economy anymore. In fact, we are hanging on straws. Okay. You see, so when people criticize you, it's only because sometimes they have the perspective you don't have, and they can see into the end of your policy and your direction, and they can see that it is bad, and so they'll only draw your attention. And so if your only response to these people is that they are naysayers, they are professional Jeremiahs, they are people who are against you, then you only end up in a ditch.
Okay, so hang on there, and we're engaging Mensah Thompson. He's the Executive Director for Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, and also happens to be one of the lead voices for Arise Ghana. Our conversation was on PURC, what Arise Ghana will be doing in Kumasi. In September, there's a big demonstration coming up. After the break, I would want to find out from him, Kumasi is supposed to receive the car power ship, which is supposed to cost some $34 million. That was also another issue. Won't that be putting sand in their galley? And also we'll talk about the banking sector cleanup. You know, Men's Gold is back in the news, plus other financial sector. Nobody has been prosecuted. Over 25 billion cedi spent. When we come back, we'll talk more on this. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're live on One with me, Bridget Otu. You can join us with your thoughts using the hashtag one-on-one on all our social media platforms, on Twitter and on Facebook. We're streaming live at Metro TV Ghana, and also if you're on Twitter, it's at Metro TV GH. So before the break, I want to speak your thoughts on the relocation of the car power ship supposed to go to Kumasi, because they have experienced consistent power outages. I have a friend in Kumasi who says Kumasi Doomswell like is there, and I'm sure the government has listened to them because it's their World Bank, as they call it, because of how much votes they get from them, and they want to do this. Don't you think that will make them happy? I mean, they are happy with very little. I mean, I've heard Chairman Untumi say, even if the people of Ashanti don't get the values to vote for them, and now you want to address their power challenges, that will be putting sand in your gari. Your demonstration will be killed.
Not at all. I mean, anybody who understands the power sector knows that is very laughable, that you need to transport a whole power badge to Kumasi before you can solve the Doomswell. Clearly, the challenge there has to do with a number of things, obsolete transmission lines, obsolete transformers and equipment, largely very deficient, which needs to be replaced. And putting efficient substations that can transport power to those areas. It has nothing to do with moving a whole power plant from Takoradi to Kumasi. That is not what is going to solve the problem. But now let's come into the power plant itself.
What do you think of the relocation?
It's very needless. Very needless. Apart from that, the amount of money we are going to spend on that relocation is unacceptable. It's extremely exorbitant and reckless, especially in these difficulties. In the existing difficulties, you want to spend that much money. How much does it cost to move a plant? You just need a couple of trailers. You dismantle the plant, put it on the trailer, and transport it to Kumasi. This has nothing to do with millions of dollars. This is about 100,000, 200,000 Ghana cedis job.
It's actually not that easy, because I'm told it's very, very dangerous. I remember before the car power ship, I worked at I did my national service at the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, and I remember before the car power ships arrived, they told us how dangerous it was, that there could be an explosion here and there, and people were even resistant to having it within the ports. So it cannot be that easy and simple as you're putting it.
Yes, easy and simple does not mean you see, plants, when they brought the plants, it was dismantled and they assembled it. Okay. So when you're transporting it, you dismantle it.
And people have to be paid for everything, every phase of it. Somebody has to.
The arrangement we had with the people who brought the plant, was that, one, it was a BOOT, build, operate, own and transfer. Now, before transfer, as part of the agreement, they are supposed to service the plant and ensure that the plant was in good shape before they officially hand over. Now, when they finish their job, instead of the government to watch for them to service the plant, ensure that every equipment or part that needs to be replaced have been replaced, they just said no, and then they sacked them, and then they went to bring these Israeli guys. Now, what is going to happen when you dismantle these plants? People, these are not, the new guys you are bringing have no knowledge in power. They are not people who build the plant. They don't understand the plant. What is going to happen if you dismantle this plant?
How do you know that's what they're going to do?
But they are the ones going to transport the plant. You're giving them the contract to transport the plant to Kumasi. And you can't just carry the plant. You have to dismantle it, take it to Kumasi and go and assemble it. Because you can't carry the whole batch and put it on the truck. No truck can carry it. So you have to break the parts down, the plant down into parts. And then each part will sit on a trailer. You transport it to Kumasi. When you get to Kumasi, you have to put it together and service it before you can start operating it. So what happens if these guys, miscellaneous, takes this plant to Kumasi, assemble it, and the plant does not work? Meanwhile, you have a contract with the people who brought the power that as part of the agreement, they have to service the plant, replace worn-out parts, and ensure that the plant is efficient and fully functional before they hand over to you. You do not let them do all these things because you know what you want to do. You want to make some money. So you are bringing in some company to do it. The right thing, if government wanted to really relocate the plant, was that when the contract with the power operators had ended, you know, they work with Gridco, they put people in there to understudy all of them. The best thing is that working with these guys should have been the ones supervising the transportation of the plant. The real people who built the plant. Yeah. They should have been the people supervising the transportation. So that when they get there, they do the assembling, service it, replace anything that needs to be replaced, make sure it is functional, and before they are and it is money we've already paid for as part of the agreement. And so all you need to spend money on is to put the plant on track and send it to Kumasi. But because somebody wants to chop some money and wants to do a contract which they can inflate, so they quickly sack the guys that, Monko, we can do Monko yebetimi. And you're going to bring these miscellaneous people who don't even understand the nitty-gritties of this plan. So what is going to happen when you send the plan to Kumasi and after assembling it doesn't work? What are you going to do?
Well, I don't think that the people don't, because I've heard the minister says but why would they hand over the plan to people who have no knowledge? I don't think that's what it is.
The consideration is money. You see, when
but that's not
what
it is. I mean, but that's not what it is. I mean, it's a contract. He's explained. He says, look, maybe the amount, and he's also disputed the figure, even though they couldn't give us the other figure, but they disputed the figure. But I don't think that they will just hand over something as delicate, potentially dangerous to people who have no knowledge.
So why did they let the guys?
This would be like playing politics with what's happening. You playing politics.
No, it's not. It's not playing politics. You see, again, I've given you the scenario. Somebody, the real people, the person who built the plant, and somebody else sitting somewhere who knows how to assemble the plant. It's the person who built it. So if you're truly interested in getting the plant relocated and be operational, the best thing you do is you let the same people who built the plant relocate it, assemble it, and then service it, make sure it is functional, and then hand over to you. So you don't let them hand over a plant. So what was the handing over in the first place if you are going to relocate the plant? Okay, it was a BOOT. And so they finished their term. And so why do you let them hand over if you are going to dismantle the plant again? You understand? And I'm saying that monies have already been paid to these people as part of the agreement we have with them to service the plant, replace parts, and make sure that before they hand over the plant to the government of Ghana, the plant is fully operational. Okay? So now, assuming that they have done the assessment and they've gone, when you relocate the plant to Kumasi and it doesn't work, can you go back to them and say, hey, the plant number mine and you can't do that.
Yeah.
You see, and these miscellaneous guys are guys who are coming in, and I can tell on authority that even the Gridco guys who are attached to these power plants will understand the working and operation of the power plant more than the miscellaneous guys you are bringing from elsewhere. So then, why didn't you give the contract to Gridco to transport? Are you saying Gridco cannot relocate the plant?
Okay, so let's talk about the banking sector cleanup. I know it's back in the news, especially Men's Gold customer, who are also saying it looks like a lot of things will happen in September, because Men's Gold customers are promising that on the 12th of September, something will happen in this country. They will demonstrate peacefully. I don't know if the police will give them the permit to do so, even though, naturally they are not supposed to even ask, but for out of courtesy, almost every group that wants to demonstrate goes to the Ghana Police Service. So that's what they will do. Arise Ghana is also promising a demonstration in September. So it looks like this country, the month of September will be a very hot month. And to you, Men's Gold customers are one of those who are saying, look, you did the banking sector cleanup, and in the report you said, high risk investment. They believe they did high risk investment. They were captured in there, but they didn't get any of the money. And I understand it's not just them, but there are other institutions that did not get the money. What's your thought on how this whole cleanup has gone? The amount of money we're supposed to even pay to recover, which we're still paying, and nothing has been done.
Well, like I've said, this banking sector cleanup is the single most destructive activity that has ever happened to the Ghanaian economy. Not even the coup d'etat has affected Ghana's economy the way the banking sector cleanup have.
How can you say that?
Yes, because, if you look at the destruction, and it is not even done yet, we have not even started experiencing the ripple effect of the cleanup. By the time...
After all the hashes we're going through?
We have it, because, when you take, every policies, it take 3, 4, 5 years before you start seeing the fruit of the policy. And that is why this is the third year, exactly 3 years since the cleanup was done. That's why we're seeing signs of it. That's why we're seeing signs of it. So these are just the preliminary stages. You see, by 2025, 2026, that is when we're going to see the full extent of the damage this whole reckless so-called cleanup, caused the Ghanaian economy. And I say what? You have banks that have an exposure of about 9 billion. As a government, the best thing you can do is to help these banks to survive.
Yeah.
You see, and even the at 9:30 that was passed. In fact, the principal aim of at 9:30 and administrators or for the central bank was that when banks go into administration or into such difficulties, the principal aim is to revive them and not to collapse them. And isn't that at 9:30? And so how somebody sat down and decided that, look, exposures that cost 9 billion, I'm going to borrow 22 billion and not use it to save the banks, but to collapse them, is something that is still unthinkable. And I keep saying that somebody must pay for this. And I've said a number of times, I'll say again, even if people are dead, their corpses will be exhumed to face criminal prosecution for the damage they've caused, for the harm they caused. And it must be done in such a way that it serves as a deterrent to people in future.
But government made it clear that these banks had been supported, even by the previous government. So they were staying afloat, but they were insolvent.
So what do you do? And their exposures, I tell you, is 9 billion. So government, you can do two things. Give them a bond, a piece of paper. They'll go to the market and raise money from that piece of paper. And then the money will keep them afloat. And then you don't have to collapse it. Or you can go and find the 9 billion yourself as a government, come and inject it to the extent of each other's exposures as equity and say, okay, I'm giving you this money as equity, right? And I'll owe a certain shares. And so if previously we gave you liquidity support and you've misapplied it, then we are going to have a representation on your board, we are going to have a representation on your management level to ensure that the right things are done. You would have saved jobs, you would have saved lives, you would have saved people's investments. You go and borrow 22 billion, says you've collapsed these banks, and up to date, the people whose money form the huge extent of these exposures and liabilities have not been settled.
I mean, they've not paid them.
They have not been paid. I can tell on authority, savings and loans companies about 80% of customers have still not been paid. Microfinance companies, between 80 to 85% have still not been paid. The only people who received some form of payment are the banks, the commercial banks. And even that one, you know what they did? They gave them, a 50% coupon to take to the market. And so if, for example, your money with CBG is, let's say, 100,000, they say, okay, government cannot pay you now, but if you're ready to take your money, if government will then give you a coupon, a 50% coupon, that means you discount your money by 50%. And so if you're ready to take 50% of your money, come and take it. Okay. Now the question is, all those people who couldn't wait and went to discount their monies by 50%, the rest of their money, where is it? Where did that money go to? Who benefited from that money? That's why I said that, you see, the kind of auditing that must go on, and you say up to date, government says it has done a cleanup, but up to date, they can't share the report of the cleanup. You know, auditing have been done by KPMG, asset quality reviews have been done, a number of, why can't government share these reports of the work of the liquidators and then the receivers? Where is the report of the receivers? Who supervised this cleanup? Why can't government publish that report? Because if you see that, if anybody is lucky enough to see that report, the worst thing is that you may collapse. And
are you surprised that to date, not a single person has been prosecuted? If you said it was such a mess, and they needed to be closed down for mismanagement, why has there not been one single person held responsible for this huge loss, not just of the banks, but the thousands of people who worked for the banks?
Exactly. Why have they not been prosecuted? Because these people, these 22 billion is going to be paid with the taxes of you and I. So we Ghanaians are paying for the recklessness of people you claim have engaged in criminal activity. Why are they not being prosecuted? So it means that if the government has any evidence, sustained evidence, it would have prosecuted them. Can't you hear Iyoko telling us they can't even prosecute Namwan because of lack of evidence? So it tells you that the approach of this whole cleanup was wrong. So you didn't have evidence to prosecute these people and you went to collapse their banks. Is that what the government is saying? You want to collapse people's bank with no evidence? You've collapsed their banks. You can't prosecute them because you don't have evidence. So on what basis did you collapse the banks? On what evidence? Or you're saying that you have evidence enough to collapse their banks, but you didn't have enough evidence to prosecute them. Clearly something is wrong. And somebody must answer this question someday, somehow. Somebody must answer, whether alive or posthumously. Somebody must answer this question.
Do you even see that happening? If we're not, because I mean, hearing the Iyoko boss, Tiwa Adudankwa, say that we want to prosecute him, but there is no evidence. He says that sometimes, you know, somebody might look guilty, whatever, but where's the evidence to take him on?
What evidence did they use to collapse Men's Gold? What evidence? Because you cannot collapse somebody's business if the person has not violated any law. It's only when there is evidence of a violation of the laws of this country. It's only on that basis that the government can stand on and collapse anybody's business.
And even if you collapse, you become the receiver, so you have to, whatever money, and they have sold assets of Men's Gold. They cannot account for it. And the customers are waiting to be paid their money.
Exactly. So what evidence did you stand on to collapse them? What law did they break? Is that law they broke not enough to prosecute them? Is that what they're saying? So if the law is not enough to prosecute them, then certainly that law could not have been enough to collapse them. And so in the tree, you say, before you entered the market to collapse people's businesses, the first thing you would have thought was that, okay, what law have they broken? What sort of remedy is available to us in court? But you just get in giddy, collapse people's business, and now you're telling us you don't have evidence. Clearly you are very incompetent, reckless, and foolish. I need to add that. I mean, you see, you can't do certain things in certain jurisdictions and go scot-free. So why do we entertain so much in this country? And day in and day out, people are losing faith in politicians, people are losing faith in this country. Because people hide behind political clothes and commit crimes and go scot-free.
The president says that I will help the NPP win 2024 elections.
How is he going to do that?
He's literally giving accounts.
And so the media should tell him how he's going to do that. You should ask him. Because if
has he done enough to merit to give the NPP the push to breaking the 8?
Well, he's the best person to tell us.
In your view, do you think the president has given a good account of himself to give the NPP a good chance at breaking the 8?
Well, the dollar is 10 cedis to a cedi. Mm-hmm. Inflation for the first time is over 31%.
Mm-hmm. There's an American economist who even puts it over 50%.
Yes, Steve Hanke.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the background of Steve Hanke. But that food prices are over the roof. Suffering, school children can't get food to eat. Corruption, mismanagement, sheer thievery. If these are the bases that the president or thinks the people of Ghana are going to vote, then he will win the next elections.
Who? He will win the next election?
Yes.
If they are going to vote on thievery,
on who has been most corrupt, on who have stolen more, on who have taken inflation to the highest level, on who have taken the city depreciation to the highest level, mismanagement, recklessness, abuse of office, conflict of interest, if these are the things that Ghanaians are going to stand on to make a decision, then the NPP will win the next elections.
And you have gotten in trouble for how you're very critical, running a CSO and a think tank, very critical of government. You've gotten yourself in trouble. I mean, last I remember is the issue involving the presidential jet, and then armed forces came and issued a letter. Eventually, you are in court. How far with that case?
Yes, I don't call it trouble. I call it occupational hazard.
Occupational hazard.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We are still in court. The last time we're in court, we're in court for CMC, what we call case management conference.
Yeah.
Yes, so we're in court for CMC. They filed their witness statements. We are. Our lawyers are going to respond appropriately. So trial is set to begin, And yes, we've pleaded not guilty. We are very confident that there's absolutely nothing in this case.
What do you think they are trying to do?
It's sheer political persecution, which is not new. At least in the last few months, we've seen a number of it going on, and so it's not something new. I mean, these are things that are supposed to strengthen our resolve.
When you say our resolve, who? You and who?
We the people who have openly decided not to succumb to these threats, but to continue criticize this government, albeit the consequences. And so we have to strengthen our resolve to know that we are doing something right. Otherwise, they won't come after us. So we're doing something right. I mean, but the government must also know that we are not its enemies. We love this country so much dearly, and we want this country to succeed. It is only in that interest that we keep criticizing, we keep shaping government policy, we keep shaping government direction. If we didn't love this country, we won't waste our time. We'll go find something else that would fetch us even more money.
Well, what would you say to people who would say, but you're only criticizing the government? Government, yes, the NPP is the party in power,
yeah.
But there are other political parties, including the NDC. Why are you not on?
Why should I criticize the NDC? Am I paying my taxes to the NDC? When I start paying taxes to the NDC, then I'll have an obligation to ensure what they're using that taxes for. But until then, the person who's in charge of my taxes is the person I'm going to focus on, and I don't care what anybody thinks.
Right. And even taking you to court, it hasn't slowed you in any way. I mean, it hasn't stopped you from being critical, speaking to issues that are of importance to national development. Where do you get the inspiration, the strength, and the courage of Vela from?
I believe in this country a lot. And I think this country deserves better than we are being served with. And I know that someday we'll have a leader who will give us exactly what we deserve. Something that the young people of this country can hold on to and say, look, this is the leadership we've been hoping for. And you know, and we want to learn from it. As a young person, I look up to the leaders of this country, because tomorrow it will be our turn to run this country. And when it's our turn, what are the things, what are the takeaways? So as we are learning, as we are watching the people who are running the affairs of this country, we are also learning and hoping that we can do better when it's our turn. But, you know, it's the inspiration stems from some of the suffering I see young people go through. I think this country is so unfair to young people. There's so much suffering in the system. A young person get out of school, it takes a person a minimum of 7 years to get a job. 7 good years. In which economy? That is so painful. And so today young people are disillusioned, young people are suffering, and when you see these things, and you know that you've given power to somebody to ensure that these things do not happen, and that person is misbehaving, using the power recklessly, focusing on things that doesn't really matter, whilst the young people on the street are suffering, then I can't sleep. Then some of us will just have to wake up at dawn and look at, see in our own small contributions how we can set things right. And so it is these things that motivate some of us, and I know that someday things will change.
Do you get threats for
of
how
course.
vocal? How do you treat the threats that you see?
I mean, the people who threaten me have realized I don't succumb to threats. Yes, threat is something that I don't succumb to. If you threaten me today, tomorrow I'll do twice what I did that you threatened me. And so, I mean, I think, you know, there's a certain bravery that comes with speaking truth to power. The truth will set you free. And even though you criticize government, you know you have enemies who want to come at you. I also know that there's so many people who love what we do. I get calls, I get messages from people who truly appreciate, who tell us, some time ago, an 89-year-old man called me and said, look, if not because of some of you, this country would have gone up by now. Because even when you people are vocal and criticizing and putting things in check, look at how the country is. So assuming people like you were not there, how is the country going to be? And these things are very inspirational.
Mensah Thompson, Executive Director of the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability. Thank you very much for coming on One. And he sums his, what he said actually kind of captures this famous quote by Dr. Martin Luther King, who says that in the end, we will not remember the words of our friends, but the silence. We will not remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. On that very note, I say thank you very much for joining us on One. Always a pleasure to bring in you, compelling interviews with people who matter and shape the conversation of this country. My name is Bridget Otu. Again, leave your comments on all our social media platforms using the hashtag One at MetroTVGH and at MetroTVGH on Twitter. Good evening.